Hey guys, Lady Steam here. This video is all about how to make our mechanical counter project. And I have to tell you, this is one of the most fun things I've designed in a long time. I had to learn a lot about how old school mechanical counters worked. And the way I did that was watch some videos online. There are some really cool videos online about mechanical counters. But I want to start with showing you how they work in general, and then we're going to talk about how to take it apart. Really, the thing you need to know about a mechanical counter is there's a piece that spins that only has a couple of teeth in it, and what it does is every time it clicks around, it spins another gear enough so this counter clicks. And if I had another gear attached to this with the two teeth on it, I could repeat that process over and over again as high a decimal places as I wanted to go, which is really amazing. And so we do a couple of other things when we're taking this and flipping it into a vertical arrangement, and that's what's so cool about this. So let me start by opening the box, and we're going to talk a little bit about the parts and pieces. And what you're going to do as you assemble it. In this bag are two mechanical counters. We figured you weren't going to play games by yourself and need to keep score, so you needed two of them. And so you should have a bag that has all the parts and pieces in it. Hang on a sec and we'll switch camera views and I'll show you all the pieces and parts in your mechanical counter set to decorate and finish. You know, as always, you're welcome to just sand them, leave them bare wood, or use wood stain on them. There are oh so many choices. So first thing you're going to notice is you've got two hardware bags. One has lots of little bits of hardware in it, and one has one very special thick spacer in it. So we're going to take those two and put them aside. We don't need them until we're ready to build. And then let's look at the pieces themselves. So what we've got is a back with a logo on it and a front. Back, front. We've got a big circle that's going to be on the back of our stack. And attached to that big circle is going to be this gear. Then, when we build it, we're going to put one of these little thin spacers in the middle. And we're going to put these two pieces connected together like so, above that on the spindle. And then we're going to be putting the front on, using that thick spacer we were looking at, and attaching these two pieces like so to give us a handle to turn with. Finally, what we'll do is we're going to build a little stack of gears, which you can't see very much of at all, right here, and that stack of gears is going to be the piece that connects the front set of pieces to the back set of pieces. So sand everything nicely. It will run much more smoothly if it's sanded. We've got sandpaper in the box for you, so you should be good to go there. Or you can use a rotary sander on the bigger pieces. Make sure you blow it out so it'll all glue together nicely when you're done. And when you're ready, come back here and I'll show you how to assemble this mechanical counter. Now that you've decorated your parts, let's take a look at what's in our hardware bag. Little things that want to roll around. You should have 5 of these 7/8 inch screws, no, 1 inch screws, sorry. One 1 1/8 inch screw. You should have 12 of these little wood spacey things. And you should have 10 nuts, 6, 8, 9, 10. And finally, you're going to have this thick spacer. So what we're going to do first is build the first section of this by putting these pieces and attaching them to the middle pieces we want to use with them. And I've been doing this assembly and then adding the back on and the screws for the back on separately and doing this kind of one piece at a time so you've got a good chance to make sure everything is finishing correctly. So you want to start with the longest of your screws. And you're going to take that screw and you're going to put it through this piece. And what we want to do first is we're actually going to glue it to this thick spacer. And I want to glue these two pieces together. There are a couple of different ways you can do it. The way that works best for me to make sure I have good glue coverage is actually to put the glue on there, bring the screw up through there, and make sure you wipe off the ends so that they didn't get any glue on them when you did that, and then put your thick spacer on here. Now, the only problem with this that you need to know about is now we're going to take this and stick it through a piece of wood. So if this glue is wet at all, it's going to try to stick to that surface when we glue it down. So you want to give it a minute to dry. If you read my handy dandy tricks in the newsletter, there's a discussion about how you can use baking powder to instantly set cyanoacrylate, or you can use Instaset. I'm going to put this nut on for a second and screw it all the way down, and use that as a way to help with pressure as well. That may mean I have to go recover a pair of pliers, but no, it's coming off. That gives you a way to make sure that's really nice and tightly glued. So give it a chance to dry well. And then the piece we're going to add to it first is the littler of the two pieces with numbers on it. So I'm going to slide this through like this, and I want to put the number on it. So the reason that spacer is special, as you can see, is it's just a little bit thicker than the wood. It's just thick enough to hold this whole thing together. So to put the glue on here, what I tend to do is use my glue bottle and just put a little blob on the side. It's actually going to get some on the screw threads here, but that doesn't matter at all. Just enough to make sure I've got a decent covering of glue. And then you have to put it through here. And the reason I did it at that angle was so I wouldn't get any glue on the sides. And I'm going to flip this around and put this facing the front. And again, I'm going to hold it together for a minute. You could use that same screw trick to make sure it's nice and tight and all lined up perfectly. And if you're going to sit with it and hold it, you also want to keep playing with it and make sure that it's still loose enough to spin once it's all glued together like that. And that is the trickiest part of this build right there. So the next thing we need to do is we need to add this. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this piece as the actual piece that's going to move our gear around to click the big wheel to the next number. And the piece with the numbers on it is going to allow us to hold the gear in place so that we don't have any trouble with it. So I'm going to put some glue on there. Don't go too far out. I'm going to put this on, and then I'm again going to make sure that that gets glued together well and that those teeth line up perfectly. Making sure those are lined up is the next most important trick to learn about this project. Which is why, again, I'm using this and building the drivetrain as I go. Now, if you look online, there are some really fancy mechanisms to make the spins work, but we decided we wanted something simple for this one. I can just sit here and spin it all day. Now I'm ready to start the other half of my drivetrain, so I'm going to take one of my other screws here, and I'm going to use it to line up and help me get these two pieces aligned together and glued together perfectly. So we'll set this gear that has the missing teeth on it here, and if you look, you'll notice that I can spin this all day long and not make that move. All I'm doing here is keeping the whole set of gears from spinning until I want them to. So now I'm going to put a little glue on this guy. And I'm going to glue my thin piece of wood down. Now the reason I'm doing that is I want something a little thicker than the 1/8 inch plywood we're using here, so that I can make sure when I attach this gear to the set, it spins both halves like we want it to. So now I've got this guy thick enough that it's not going to get caught on my wheel. And we're going to add another gear in here. And I'm going to line this up to the teeth on the bottom. It won't completely mesh with all of them. It'll only mesh with half of them, but I can add that to my stack. And now what you'll notice is when I spin this around, I go around once and that clicks once, which is perfect. And now we need to add the gear to this stack. That's going to make this part spin. So we'll put one more gear on our stack, glue that one more gear on here. If you ever end up with glue going where you don't want it to, you know, you could use a paper towel and you can wipe it all up. And I have my gear in place. But I want to do one more thing. I'm just going to set this other thin gear loosely in here so that the height matches. And I'm going to set this gear on top. And because I'm kind of assuming this is the front, I'm going to put that gear on top like that. And as I spin this around, the way we've created this gear, it will flip this gear once every time around. So we're ready for the one tricky step, which is how do I align this circle? And I'm going to do the same thing with it that we've done before, but I did that in the bonus project, so you might not have seen it. Come on. Don't lose the screw. That's the most important thing. Take that off and get it out of my way. Put this back on. So it will do the right thing. That guy on like so. And to make aligning this a little easier, again, I'm just going to stick a nut on the back of it for a minute so we can see where we want the alignment to be, and so I don't lose the screw completely. All right, so here's the trick. If this is at 0, when it's right here, then I want this back wheel to be at 0 at the same time. So I'm going to spin this back wheel around, and I want that back wheel to be at 0 too. So that's my challenge here, is making sure that those get lined up properly. Probably the easiest way to do it is to put some glue on here, but don't put any pressure on. Now I'm going to flip that over. Make sure my front piece is really at 0. And things are working as they should. I'm going to put that piece back on here. Now you could do it and assemble it separately, but the problem I had when I tried to do that initially was that there's a little bit of alignment of the teethness here, and if you don't align it right with where the teeth are, you don't end up with in really being at the 0 position. And I I think I'm in pretty good shape. So I gotta take this nut off so I can actually put that gear back on. Gravity sucks. Although all of you will tell me you know better and that gravity does not suck, but that's okay. And I can pull it back around and it'll tick to 1. So now that I've done that, I'm ready to put the rest of it together. That was the hardest part, is getting my alignment perfect. So we're going to put the back on. And the easiest way to do that I have found to do that is to put these 4 screws in. And I'm going to put a screw on them to start them. No escaping. Oh no, Mr. Bill. Okay. I'm just going to use those nuts temporarily to hold this together. And what I want to do, as you can see from here, is I want to put these through, and I want to put 1 nut on each of them. If I'm talented enough to start a screw today. There we go. You may want to use your screwdriver and hold on to the nut so that you're reasonably tight and so these nuts don't back out on you. But they're going to hold our unit together and give you a place to put your hands, all of the important things in life, but we want to make sure they can't get too tight, so we'll start here. And 1 more. And again, we'll tighten this one down a little bit so it doesn't get loose and annoying. And then we're going to put 3 of these spacers on each of our long screws, which if you look at it, you'll notice gets you just even with the surface of your wheel. And it looks like my extra spacer fell out. We don't want to lose that. And we'll put this on and see if I manage to lose my clutch adjustment or if I'm still in good shape. Yeah, so see how that's not lined up perfectly? I want to switch that gear over 1 more gear tooth. I'll lose all my screws in the process. There's a joke there somewhere, Greg, about there's a screw loose. Because what I need to have happen is just when I turn it for that to go. And it did now, so I'm at 29. We'll turn it again, and I should go to 30. Okay, that looks good. Flip that back over like that. Put my spacers back on. Now, if you don't think you're quite thick enough, you can add a little piece of cards, a little cardstock circle or something else on the screws, or just don't make sure you tighten them up too much. So we're going to put my backpack on. And this takes a little bit of finagling because this is loose. And we'll start by loosely putting on these 4. You're going to need to, again, make sure that you glue the nuts on for them so that they don't over tighten in the process. But just getting those 4 on and started means nothing is going to be able to fall out on me. And it's spinning perfectly. Now, you noticed how much trouble I had spinning it. That's what this extra layer is for here. Give you a slightly bigger handle. And then this nut is the one that's optional. You definitely need a nut on this piece, but that middle one you don't actually have to put a nut on. It's captive kind of by nature of the way everything's connected together and because you glued it to it. But you will probably want to, so I'm going to put some glue on it, and I'm going to put some glue on the rest of my nuts that I was testing with. Saves gluing things for last, as always. And now that you've made one, you can go make your other one. And you should have everything that you need. As I said, if you wanted the simple mechanical counters to add to your collection, we'll have them posted shortly on the website. And we'll be good to go from there.